We are broadcasting from the European Parliament in Strasbourg, where we just had a debate on democracy in Poland, but also on events in Ukraine after the blowing up of the Nowa Kakhovka dam. With us, a very special guest, twice Prime Minister of Lithuania, member of Sąjūdis, the pro-independence movement, but now my colleague here in the European Parliament, and you specialize actually in relations with Russia, don't you? You're a rapporteur of several reports on Russia, so you couldn't be more competent than to comment on the latest events. What's your commentary on the Nowa Kakhovka explosion?
Well, I'm, specializing. It's my, formal obligation in Russia, and yes, we are doing a lot of, events and webinars on Russian, with Russian opposition. Recently, we have had a big event in the European Parliament, but also I'm very much involved into Ukrainian issues. Again, besides formal, obligations like being chairman of Euronest Parliamentary Assembly, which is with all the Eastern Partnership countries, also a member of delegation with Ukraine. I am also, we started and we established the informal network United for Ukraine, a network of parliamentarians. On the first day of the war, we started to do that. Now it's a global network. We're doing a lot of webinars and so on with more than 400 parliamentarians.
And this parliament is overwhelmingly pro-Ukraine.
Yeah, absolutely. So this
there are
is not
some voices from the far right and far left, but they are isolated.
No, it's really, I am very happy and proud that really Parliament is, 90% votes in favor of the resolutions which all of us were preparing. We are using this network, I'm saying, to fight political battles in the Western Front, in the capitals and so on. So Nowa Kakhovka, of course, is something, how to say?
Do you think Putin did it?
I think so, absolutely.
Why? Why do you think it, and why did he do it?
Well, first of all, of course, perhaps it's a new type how to threaten the whole West. If he became a little bit more calm with all those threats on, nuclear weapons, maybe Americans explain him,
Bill Burns told, told the Russians
what will be the answer. Now he's using, this eco-genocide, threat that he can use it. There are no boundaries for his, stupid, and totally criminal steps. So that is what I see as a reason. Of course, maybe there are some tactical reasons that he wanted, to stop offensive operations.
Distract attention.
Yeah, to distract attention.
And resources.
Yeah, and maybe, to create some problems, physical problems.
A diversion,
Yeah, so, but...
Did you deal with Putin as Prime Minister?
I had once what it was called an informal meeting in his Nova Garova.
When?
2009. I was Prime Minister, and we had a meeting, and my feeling was really, I remember my explanation after the meeting to my team, that for me it looked like that I know such type of guy, and I said in Vilnius, if you know, now it's prospect of volunteers. During Soviet time it was a prospect of Red Army, and in Russian language it was Krasnaya Army, and we were calling that region district, Krasnukha.
But Putin didn't become Putin right away.
Yeah.
When he was Prime Minister the first time, he published an article with a plan for reforms, which was actually interesting.
Yeah, but my feeling was really that he is from this, street gangs type of guy, that if you are showing your weakness, he immediately jumps on. And that was what I faced during that meeting.
But in 2009, Russia was still negotiating a partnership and cooperation agreement.
It was not. Still, that is why I said, okay, let's have a meeting, and so on and so on. But I remember only from that meeting, this type of conversation. Now, why Putin changed? I think that, he has no ideology in himself. The only ideology, at least I agree with late Senator John McCain. Russia is mafia-led state. he has this mafia mentality: grab the money, keep power to grab the money. And for example, I'm asking myself why Putin started the war, against Ukraine, which, from my point of view, is total madness. Total.
The first one or the second one?
The second one. Yeah, first one was okay. First one was he was trying, to bring up this nostalgia to imperial glory, and he got some kind of response from Russian people,
Krim nash.
Krim nash, and applause and so on. So he's smart on that. Now I think that he made a huge mistake, but why he started, And somebody is saying,
to me, classic behavior of a leader in his second or third decade in power.
Maybe, but my understanding is that simply he was looking how to keep his regime, how to keep his power, and he was looking what are the dangers. And when somebody is saying that he was afraid of NATO, I don't buy that argument.
I don't either.
Or that he wanted to restore.
The European Union is the bigger threat.
Absolutely, because success of Ukraine, which comes with integration towards EU, for him was and is the biggest danger.
And he's right.
Because Russian people will start to ask,
if Ukraine succeeded as a democratic, pro-Western, free market, non-corrupt country, the Russian people would demand the same sooner or later, and that's a threat to Putinism.
Absolutely.
He's not wrong.
We are absolutely on the same page. I think that it's still. My worry is that not everybody inside of EU understands in the same way as we.
Power of example. Huh?
Yeah.
And so the association agreement between Ukraine and the European Union, finished under the Polish presidency, if I may say so, became the pretext first for attacking Crimea and the Maidan, and now the war. That's what he finds threatening.
Yeah, so that was a threat, and on another side, there was some kind of what I call geopolitical weakness on EU side, that we were really not. We were allowing to keep Ukraine in some kind of gray zone. No clear membership, in NATO perspective, no clear membership perspective for EU.
In my view, a crucial mistake, and Carl Bildt and I were begging the European Council to do something about it. When Russia imposed the trade embargo on Ukraine in the summer of 2013, the EU decided to treat it as a bilateral issue, whereas in fact it was Russia's attack on Ukraine for not choosing the customs union with Russia.
So that's really now when we see the war, what I say, this is a huge geopolitical crisis on the whole European continent. I am always believing in Jean Monnet, dictum that European community will be created during the crisis. So I'm looking that out from this crisis we shall come out becoming stronger.
Already, so-called peace facility has become a defense budget, and we've bought 6 billion euros worth of weapons for Ukraine. Unimaginable 3 years ago. Huh?
But even more, I'm looking for this, geopolitical awakening. How to, and first of all, we need to look into our past mistakes, and exactly these gray zones, no integration for Ukraine and for into EU or NATO, that should be changed immediately. That is why we are, pushing, and maybe a successful, resolution tomorrow will be passed, where we are speaking. The whole European Parliament speaks very powerful language that Vilnius or Washington summit, should pave the way for extending formal invitation for Ukraine to join NATO. That is something, I would call unbelievable. Even a year ago, we were not able to foresee such kind of, changes. So that is very important. And it's important what I am saying always. It's important not only for Ukraine, because, Ukraine is able to take, responsibility for their security. If they are provided by the weapons, it's it's Ukraine more needed for NATO as strong, military powers than, formal NATO membership.
And we'll be learning from them how to fight the Russians.
But I see very important, really, why this membership is so important is exactly, to send a signal to Russian people. Forget about your, imperial dreams. Ukraine is gone. Ukraine is on the western side. Look into other dreams, how to create normal life in Russia and so on and so on.
I'm glad you mentioned it because in all of our countries there is the attitude, oh, the Russians support this war, they are irremediable. Pre-war leader who is actually, whose heart is actually buried in Vilnius, Józef Piłsudski. I'm sure a controversial figure for you.
No.
But he knew...
Great leader. That's
good,
what I'm calling.
Thank you. But he knew Russia well, having spent years in Siberia. He said that in Russia, even anarchists are imperialists. and there is something to that, obviously. But I noticed that, like me, you followed the debate in the Russian opposition, both in exile and inside. And as we know, you from Sayudis, I from Solidarity, today's opposition, even a marginal opposition, can be tomorrow's government.
Yeah, sure.
So what the Russians are saying amongst themselves is important, I think. And if they conclude that empire is bad for Russia, that's a good thing, which should be encouraged, huh?
Absolutely, I'm always saying that from practical point of view, from the point of view of our security, I'm always saying that, look, we have very strong interest to have good relations with Russia. Simple,
But it's impossible with Putin.
Yeah, it's impossible with Putin, because when we're looking into the history, I'm always semi-joking, but real history. If you will look into the history, so the last time when we had both, Poland and Lithuania, bad relations with Russia, and Russia was suffering, it was 1600, where we were sending Dmitry, and false Dmitry, and were occupying, Kremlin. After that, usually, if our relations were bad, usually we were suffering. We were destroyed, we were occupied, we were sent to Siberia.
We had alliances with Russia. We had alliances against Turkey, against the Mongols, against the Teutonic Knights.
Yeah, at some time.
Against the Third Reich.
Yeah.
Foreign policy can change.
But exactly, I'm saying, okay, we want, because we suffered so much, of this authoritarian Russia, so we want to have good relations with Russia, but it depends if Russia is moving from authoritarian, regime to democracy or to normality.
And it also depends on whether Russia recognizes that the real threat to its security doesn't come from Europe, but might appear in the Far East.
Absolutely. I think that, again, what Putin speaks about security threats from Europe, it's simple, brainwashing for I think that he does not believe himself, but to brainwash, Russian, mind, that was very good, But in order to achieve that, that Russia can become a democracy, we need to start to believe that really it's possible.
Or at least become predictable. Democracy is a tall order for Russia.
Yeah.
But at least predictable, at least playing by the same rules.
I agree with you, and that is, this transformation of Russia. It should be, our in some way our strategic goal to help Russian people, Russian opposition, to implement such a transformation, and and of course, it will depend very much on Ukraine, on Ukrainian victory, on Ukrainian success, with integration and so on, and that is what we need to have in mind, and that is what, on one side, we need to speak with Russian opposition, and that is what we did, a little bit more than a week ago with this big gathering of Russian opposition with Brussels dialogue. We called it conference.
And when Khodorkovsky, Kasparov and others say, we will, if we get influence over Russian policy, we will withdraw from every inch of Ukrainian territory and from future income from the export of oil and gas, we will pay reparations.
Yeah.
Ukrainians are suspicious of that. But I told them last time I was in Kiev, look, no Russian politician will ever give you more. Take it.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean, I understand, Ukrainian, well, on one side, when I am working with Russian opposition, on the other side with Ukrainian, I understand Ukrainian emotions for time being, but
they are fighting for their lives.
Yeah, but definitely for all of us, it would be very, very important, very good, not to have such a permanent threat, coming from Kremlin, from Moscow. And those changes, as I say, it can be started only with total Ukrainian victory, against Russia. That is what Khodorkovsky and Kasparov very much recognized, and that is why they are arguing in the West, give more weapons, because that is the way how changes can come, and that is why we need to be in a very rational attitude. Of course, I see both in Lithuania and perhaps in Poland, not everybody believes in possibility of Russian democracy, but that is
because the sociology, our own countries are divided civilizationally. In Russia, the proportion of authoritarian-minded people and kind of liberal-minded people is even worse.
Yeah, sure.
In Poland it's half and half, and in Russia it's 20% pro-democracy, if that. And they had a very, very painful experience with what they called democracy in the 1990s. As you know.
Yeah. But I'm saying, well, to those who do not believe in possibilities that Russia can turn at least to what I call normality, if not democracy, maybe democracy will demand much more of time. Well, I remember, all those days when Gorbachev announced perestroika. Nobody was expecting. I mean, we were not expecting living in Soviet Union, and we haven't seen a lot of, predictions from the West that things can turn into that, into that direction. Obviously, why, this was started. It's not that suddenly, miracle had happened and Gorbachev...
No, Gorbachev tried to save the system.
Absolutely.
But he just did it incompetently.
Okay, so that's their problem, Yeah. But I'm saying, why not to see that, also conditions can go into such a way that, perestroika 2.0.
And the previous time of reform, 1905, after they lost war with Japan.
Absolutely.
When did Nicholas II introduce the Duma, freedom of the press, and the constitution? After a lost war. Russia only ever reforms itself after a lost war.
Absolutely. So that is why it's our task to convince big Western capitals. Let's go for total defeat. In some countries, in some capitals, what I am...
Are playing for a draw.
Yeah. Well, we don't know what will happen if Ukraine will defeat Russia. Maybe Russia will start to collapse, and that will be unpredictable, smooth chaos, nuclear arms are not controlled. And maybe, let's have no such ambition of Ukrainian total victory. Maybe let's go for smaller, things. And then, and that brings, again, hesitation to give weapons or not, and so on and so on. So that's why we need to convince the West. Have broader view, broader strategy.
Do you want to hear the Sikorski doctrine on this? There is never any shortage of pocket chamberlains willing to trade other people's land for their own peace of mind.
Yeah. Very good. Very precise, very precise doctrine, I would say. Exactly.
But there is a willingness now in Western Europe to listen to our arguments. We've been vindicated in warning the West. And so this is the moment to institutionalize this, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that there is better mood for listening, but still what is missing, and maybe, again, that is a task for Central Europe. I see lack of really a leadership, and perhaps exactly Kasparov said, that what is missing for time being in the Western democracies, how to have collective Churchill, So that's because indeed,
Isn't the current Polish government providing the leadership?
I would say, in some cases, not bad, but again, I would say that, internal developments in Poland is really, I see them as big problem for all of us. And definitely, that will be not acceptable for European Union on those basic values. And then this permanent conflict in between of what I would call, Warsaw and Brussels is really very unproductive.
My thesis is that the best thing, in addition to the logistical and military help that Poland can do for Ukraine, is to fix its conflict with Brussels and Berlin, because the West Europeans will never accept a Ukrainian membership if there are rule of law problems in other post-communist countries.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. I am always saying, look, guys, we are doing bad service to our, really strategic goal to have Ukraine, to have Moldova inside of European Union, and to have, spread of democracy, stability and security in our region. If we are, threatening, and we are becoming bad example, and you can hear from all the capitals, look, why we are capitals of Western, part of European Union. Why we are worried about enlargement? Because, we got...
There's a limit of dysfunctional states that the EU can tolerate at any one time.
Absolutely.
But so who should provide the leadership? Paris? Berlin?
I think that exactly with those developments, what we see now, Ukraine and so on, I agree with those who are saying that, political center will start to move to the, more eastern side of the whole European Union. And here again,
And if Ukraine becomes a member, Europe will be more balanced politically.
More balanced, absolutely. And then, exactly, Warsaw will be in a very important place. And
Poland and Ukraine together will have more votes than Germany.
Sure. So that is what we need to, to foresee. And that is where, again, I am saying, Poland can play really very important role, being a real leader of the whole region. But for that, absolutely clear that, Poland needs to establish proper, rational relationship with Brussels. Because if not, then we are, we don't want to be part of that,
You don't want to have to choose.
Yeah, sure.
Let's conclude by saying, by me testing on you, an initiative that could benefit, in my view, both Poland and Lithuania and parts of Western Europe, that I imagine could be a part of the larger settlement after Russia has lost the war. What the Russians call the Kaliningrad Oblast, which we now call Kruleviec, is an armed camp, including nuclear-capable missiles and a storage of tactical nuclear warheads. If Russia were to become a constructive member of the European architecture, surely at least those nuclear warheads should be transported into Russia proper, away from the border, from being inside the European Union, effectively.
I agree, absolutely, Somebody saying
and
that...
the Germans should see that, huh?
Absolutely, Well, somebody is speaking that after the war, Russia needs to be denuclearized or something like that. I am not so sure.
That won't happen.
Yeah, that will not happen. But to speak really about Kaliningrad becoming...
We hate the name Kaliningrad in
okay,
Poland. Kalinin signed
I know,
the execution order of Polish officers.
We call it Karolaučius,
war criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for my, Soviet habits. But I agree with you, and definitely, there is also a possibility for that region, to become a successful region on the Baltic, seashore, with all the historical, old historical, roots, Immanuel Kant, and so on and so on. So that's what is possible. I hope that, really, it's also, I am looking into historical tendencies, and I see that tendency is very simple. Soviet Union, Russia, as a last empire, is slowly collapsing. No, it will take time. It's very painful. It's painful for Russia itself. It's painful for the neighbors.
But Putin made a catastrophic error.
Yeah. But when it starts to go, you cannot stop it. You cannot delay. You can make a lot of blood. But nevertheless. So that's how, democracy and normality will start to spread into that region, like it started, from you, from us, then, Ukraine, then Georgia, Moldova, and so on. So things are moving into that direction. And still, I hope that, even during our lifetime, we shall see something totally different and much more positive.
Inshallah. But for that to happen, Ukraine first has to win.
Absolutely.
Slava Ukraini.
Gerom slava.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
This has been the English language section of Free Radio Europe, a European voice in your home. If you've enjoyed it, please share it, like it, subscribe it. Thank you very much and see you next time.